Some friends of mine commissioned me to make them a cutting board, and they had contacted me yesterday to let me know that they were having some problems with it. This is a face grain cutting board made with quartersawn sapele and curly big leaf maple, I think. It might be hard maple. Their complaint was that the board had warped after about 6 months of use. It's warped in this way so that the bottom side of the cutting board is rocking in the middle. I thought I had done everything correctly to avoid this kind of wood movement where it's warping in this direction, and I'll bring you in close and show you on the edge profile here what's happening, and I'll have to do some corrections with my plane today and get it back to them, which means that I can do just a little bit of refinishing, clean things up, and get it back to flat, and hopefully avoid this happening again once they have sort of more cycles of washing and drying. So this is a lamination of 5 pieces of wood here, and I chose these pieces of sapele, the darker wood here, to be the majority of the cutting board, just because the grain on this is so quartersawn, which means that the growth rings here that you can see are perpendicular to the width of the board. And this is a desirable cut for pieces of wood that you don't want to have warp, just because a tree, once you cut it into planks, is always going to want to have the growth rings, as it dries, almost flatten out. I brought this piece of cherry into frame here to illustrate what I'm talking about when it comes to wood movement over the years, depending on the direction that the block has been, the log had been sawn into. And you can see here that these growth rings indicate that the bark side of the tree is somewhere over here in this log, and the center of the tree is somewhere over here. And the tendency for woods that have been sawn in this way, and this is called flat sawn, where the growth rings are parallel to the width of the board, as opposed to the quarter sawn that we were talking about before, where the growth rings are perpendicular to the width of the board. These are kind of unstable. They tend to cup over time, and the tendency to cup is going to be so that these curved rings here flatten out. So the tips of these rings would have a tendency to go this way and sort of relax into a more flat orientation, which means that this board may end up with cup that has the high spots here, and the low spot here, and the bottom of this board would also cup in the same direction, where these edges would raise up this way, and this would be sort of a poor choice to orient it this way to have the top surface, because you would end up with this low point in the center and high points on the side over time. So these sapele sections here are ostensibly pretty stable, and they weren't really going to cup, but I chose these 3 pieces of maple and oriented them so that the relaxing action that we were talking about would be balanced out, and cause it to be high in the middle, which is the desirable orientation. I have the cutting board clamped up here between the dogs on my bench and the tail vise that I have back here. And also I have a clamp on the right side of this piece of thin oak stock, just as a way to wedge the board in here so it doesn't move around when I'm trying to plane it. The board, as you can see here, when I shine a light behind it, has this glow in the middle where there's actually quite a substantial amount of space. I can fit the point of a pencil underneath there. And so the knife edge can't actually make contact with the center of the board here if it's a flat blade, and that's the problem, as well as just general rocking, which is uncomfortable when you're trying to have control over your knife. So I'll flip this over. I'm not particularly concerned about which way I run my plane on this. This maple is incredibly curly, and the sapele changes grain direction every other growth ring or 2. So I've sharpened my jointer plane really, really sharply, and I'm going to be taking fine cuts to take out a little bit of the center of the back of this board to hopefully cause the warp to come back in the other direction. I'm going to strike some pencil lines across the center here to help me better visualize how I'm planing. There's actually some food and stuff on here that's going to come up with the plane. But my first pass is going to be right down the center here, and then I'm probably going to take sort of like a pyramid style of passes where I go take one shaving here, and then I'll take maybe another shaving, and then take one on either side, and then I'll do the same sort of thing where I'll take one shaving here, and then another, and then one on either side, and go until I have a little bit of a convex in the board this way, and we'll see if that evens things out on the other side. This plane should keep everything nice and flat, considering that it's more than the length of this board which I'm planing. And I'm going to go until I stop cutting in the center here. Still cutting. Okay, and now I'm going to take one pass off either side, and then we'll go back to the center. My studio mate always makes fun of me for my sort of flamboyant flip of the shaving, but I prefer not to have to lift my plane, so getting the shaving out of the way so it doesn't get caught in the center is kind of paramount to me. Oh yeah. Now we're moving. Wow. Look at that. It's awesome. We'll check again. I still have a ton of warp, but my flat patch is now about this wide, so we'll keep it moving. Okay, we're very nearly there. I'm looking for some little bit of light coming through in the center here, which would indicate that I've put a little bit of a hollow into the backside of the cutting board, the one that faces the counter, so that hopefully all 4 points of the corners are what is making contact and not the center, which will stop the rocking. And it's most apparent down that end. I think I have a little bit more work to do over here. I'll hollow out a touch there, and then I'll put a fresh edge on my blade and re-smooth the whole surface. This is the surface finish I was getting off my joiner plane with those heavy cuts, and the sapele I find can be full of silica, which I believe is what can dull blades and kind of cause things to chip out, but I still wasn't getting any tear out, which I think is a testament to closing the mouth down really tight when you're taking a cut, which is easy to do on the bedrock style planes. The surface finish might look good, but if I run my marking knife across here, I can feel all the tiny little ridges and chips that were in the blade. So now that I have a fresh edge, I'm going to come in and smooth things out and take out all the planer marks here, or hand plane marks. I'm just going to hand sand now with 240 to take out those final last bits of scratches. I was struggling to get some full width shavings because this has a hollow in it, and because that plane is so wide, it kind of struggles to get in there. But I'm not really interested in going to some of my smaller planes because the sapele in this are so prone to tear out that I'm really keen on keeping the accuracy of the Lee-Nielsen tool despite how wide it is. So I think once I finish with this hand sanding, will be good to throw a little bit of oil on it, maybe trim up some of the edges because they're now smaller after planing, and we'll be done. Got some 320 here. I'm not going to go too crazy with it. just because this is a cutting board. It's going to get wet again soon, but might as well spend just a moment of time with the 320 in case there's any fuzz or anything like that. I readjusted the bevels here with just my jack plane as I removed some material, and then I blew it out with compressed air. And now I'm just going to put another coat of this beeswax and jojoba oil mixture that I like to use for not just cutting boards, but lots of furniture. I think it's really nice, and you can reapply it, and it just gets rubbed on like that. Okay. Let that chill for half an hour, and then I'll rub off any remaining stuff, but thanks for watching.